Good evening and namaste. I'm Sandhya, co-founder of Vridhi Techno. Vridhi Techno is a nutrition support company that believes that health can be built when we are nutritionally aware. And in our effort to spread nutritional awareness, we have this monthly talk show, Let's Talk Health. This the topic for this month is quite an interesting one. It's about myths on diet. There's a lot of awareness among people now to build health. Along with that, there's quite a lot of confusion also about what's the right way to build health and what is appropriate to do it in a holistic manner. To shed some light on some of the myths that we have about diet, we have eminent nutritionist and ex-deputy director of National Institute of Nutrition, Dr. Sudarshan Rao, with us today. I invite him for the show. Good evening, doctor.
Yeah, good evening.
I think we'll start on our interesting topic for this month.
Yeah,
So, uh, like like I just mentioned, that it's people are nutritionally aware, becoming nutritionally aware today. There is an increasing interest in building health. Along with that, there are certain misconceptions also. One of the most common thing that we have seen is they are not able to decide as to what is the right way to build health. A very big misconception recently is that if you have to build, you have to lose weight or you need to build your muscle, reduce carbohydrates. This is just one of the misconceptions. So, if you could shed some light on what is the right.
yeah, thank you, Sandhya.
Yeah.
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, this is another episode of creating awareness on nutrition. So, the myth, the first one that Sanjay has actually raised is that what is the myths related to body weight? So, what I'll try to do today is that we'll give you background as what are all the factors which can influence your body weight. So, basically, your body weights actually can be decided even before you are born because the whatever your mother takes when you are in the womb, so the nutrition that she has taken, yeah,
Mhm.
so that will also influence. So from there it starts, and further down you say genetics, then some social and your social life later in part of life, and then the this thing, echo, this thing, environment. So all those things will influence. But what we will try to do today is I'll only discuss about how the diet can influence your body weight. Many times,
Yes,
many
it's the
people
biggest
are,
factor.
yeah, many people are actually on dieting and they are trying to think that if you can reduce your consumption, you'll automatically will be actually maintaining the good weight, all that. Uh, related to that, so we should have some basic understanding of how it is. As I told you that it can start the from the before you are born, but later in your life, what are the diets that you are taking? So basically, body weight is actually the energy that we take. Like we had in the last episode, we were discussing about the balanced diet. You said that
Yeah,
on an average, people are likely to consume around 2,000 calories of
in a day.
diet. Yeah, in a day. And then whenever you have if your expenditure is not matching with that 2,000 calories, that you are actually accumulating some energy. So that is what actually gets into become body fat, and that's how you increase your body weight. So that is the reason why people think that if they can reduce the calories, they can actually reduce the body weight. So, but as I told you in the earlier my plate, also I try to show that which are the calories you should be getting from which portions. Is it from carbohydrates, or I mean the cereals, or oils? Okay, so our proteins. So where should you get the right calories? What is the right proportion of calories you are supposed to be getting? So many time what happened is that especially in South India, when you are actually discussing about the health parameters, the non-communicable diseases are actually on the increase, and this is a major cause of deaths, mortality in the South India. This is because you are having that overweight and obesity are increasing, and this overweight and obesity actually is the mothers of all non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and also some cancers also. So that is the relation between that. And of course, as you know that when we are discussing about South India, This is not seen in North India because their this thing, per capita incomes are less compared to us, and also the educational qualifications and also the literacy is much more in South. So all these factors also influence your actually diet this thing. And the other important thing is whenever our incomes go up, the naturally your consumption of calories goes up, and most of it is through fat. Many of you probably are not aware that you will be calculating only fat that is coming from what you are using it in your kitchen, but there are
Yeah, say
fat.
oil or a butter or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, so these are called visible fats. Okay, so but there are half of that, or more than half of that also can come invisible. That means you are not seeing that fat, but it is still going into your system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One is that from natural sources, like rice you take, there is some amount of fat also in the rice that also goes into your system. And the other invisible fats that are actually you are not even counting them is your processed food. So many of the foods that we consume from outside may have a lot of, take for example the biscuits, which is a very common thing that many people will have early in the morning or evening snack. So the fat, the biscuit itself around 17 to 18% of fat. Okay, so huge amount of that. So similar snacks you are buying outside or any other ready-to-eat foods still will have some amount of fat, which is also going into your system. Okay, so all these things actually, and so the other important thing that we have to understand is the fat calories are. So 1 gram of fat gives 9 calories compared to only 4 calories from carbohydrate. Okay, even if you are taking, yeah, even if you are taking only 30 grams of fat, which we are, I mean, advising you to,
Acceptable.
yeah, we are advising you to be keeping around that. That itself will give 270. But 30 grams of carbohydrate will give only 120 calories. So even the quantity that you consume compared to carbohydrate is much smaller, but the total calories that you are getting from fat are much higher. Okay, so not only these things, even the sweets will have a lot of fat. So you are only calculating sugar or something like that from sweets when you are consuming, but sugar sweets also will have a lot of fat, in which you are not at all counting that when you are actually trying to this weight management. Okay, so all these factors, and as I told you that many of us are definitely having a much more fat than what is recommended to keep your body weight intact. Okay, so the second one is that the carbohydrates. Okay, so this is where actually, so all over the world, people have done a lot of studies and trying to understand that overweight, obesity, what is the relation between this? And when they were trying to do, they found that carbonated beverages or soft drinks, because in India we are not still in that stage, but we are getting into that. But they consume much more in Western countries than us. So the major this thing that is coming from these carbonated beverages or soft drinks is sugar. Sugar they add from outside. It is not naturally present. Okay, so they have identified that sugar is the major cause, which is actually having that overweight, obesity in the people who are consuming more of soft drinks or cold drinks or something like that. So that's how the relation has been established, that if you should be able to consume less sugar. As I told in my last episode also, that sugar is not essential for your. It's not recommended actually.
Yeah,
So
you had
yeah,
mentioned it's an empty
yeah. So
calorie.
yeah, you will get these sugars from fruits, other places also, but it is not essential. So what they said is you may not be able to reduce overnight to zero. So you try to reduce it to 10% of your calories. Supposing if you are talking about 2000 calories, if you are taking 200, 10% of that, it should not be more than that. Okay, so you should be able to reduce it. If you can totally avoid also is good. So this is one thing. So this sugar is an example of simple carbohydrate. Carbohydrates also, two or three types of carbohydrates are there. So we need a lot of carbohydrates for our energy, other than fat that we are talking about. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
as I told you, around 45 to 55% of your calories should come from carbohydrates. But
Yes.
what are the types of calories that we should be consuming? Yeah, it should come from whole grains. Okay, so these are complex carbohydrates which will not shoot your blood sugar much higher, because they'll be slowly releasing your glucose into your system. That is good for your health. So if you are taking a sugar or simple sugars or simple carbohydrates, the blood sugar will go up immediately after you consume, that is spiking. Okay, so for that reason only, generally we will be talking about the low glycemic food. Okay, so these are all another concepts which are all part of that carbohydrate that we are talking about. So what we generally suggest, as I said, for fats also, there are certain things which are coming from your food, the cereals or whatever you take as a major staple. And then there are certain things which are coming through your processed food that you are consuming from outside. Okay, so within the processed foods, just now I gave an example of maybe soft drinks or carbonated beverages where these sugars are added from outside. As I told you earlier also, sugars also can come through your fruits. Okay, these natural sugars which are coming through your fruits, they are good because they bring a lot of other nutrients along with that. And that is the reason why if somebody is adding sugar into this carbonated beverages, that's called empty calories. That means they give only calories, not other nutrients which are essential for our body.
Mm.
Okay, that is the reason why we say that the type of carbohydrates we are supposed to be taking should be more of complex carbohydrates than a simple carbohydrate that you mostly will have in the refined processed foods, like even potato chips or even some of the maida. I told there is wheat flour is less refined, then maida is refined. So anything which you are consuming prepared from maida, your blood glucose will shoot up more faster than compared to the wheat flour product. Okay, and in that context only, we should be trying to understand that what is the type of carbohydrates we are talking. So we are not trying to say that your carbohydrate intake, the type of carbohydrate is more important than the carbohydrate itself. If you are
Intake.
taking
Right.
complex carbohydrates, that will automatically take care of those things. And of course, that should be around 45 to 50%,
50% of
55%,
the time.
not more than that.
Okay.
But your consumption will go up with these simple carbohydrates when you are actually consuming a lot of ready to eat foods, industrially processed especially. They'll have a lot of this type of things than the complex carbohydrates that we otherwise we can have from the whole grains. Okay, that is the reason why we suggest people to not to have too much of processed food, and you should more rely on whole grain foods where you will get these complex carbohydrates.
Okay.
So these two things are very important to understand you for your maintenance of body weight. The other thing, as I told you, that your energy expenditure. See, okay, so you should be able to have a lot of physical activity. Within the physical activity, the other important thing is an exercise. Exercise is also physical activity, technically. But what when we say exercise, it is a very programmed mm, physical activity. So that is the difference. You do a lot of household work. Doing a lot of household chores you will be doing. So all those things are a physical activity, definitely. But a programmed physical activity is suggested at least half an hour a day, so that your energy expenditure is actually matching with your energy intake, so that you don't have the positive deposits of this energy, which actually results into increasing your body weight. Okay, so that's where the physical activity is very important. And that is the reason why, because nowadays I think most of us actually spending a lot of time on either WhatsApp or watching TV, which are actually sedentary these things, where our expenditure on that means very much smaller. So we are not doing the physical activity as we were doing in the earlier days. So that is very important, which is missing. So that's where you should be able to concentrate to maintain the body weight, besides those factors which earlier I told you.
Okay.
Okay, so in that context, one more misconception, because it is related to this, I'll try to explain you, then we can have the questions. Is many times people ask us that is multigrain, we see atta is good for health. So okay, so the relation between multigrain and this body weight is essentially the carbohydrate that we are talking.
Yeah.
Okay, and also fiber. Whenever you have this rice which is more polished, a super white rice that you will have
Mm.
is very much polished, where the complex carbohydrates are reduced to some extent, so that you are not getting the complex carbohydrates. So that's the reason why we say brown rice or less polished rice is much better. Okay, so in that context, the multigrain will help you to actually increase your this one, dietary fiber. Okay, so it will have more dietary fiber. That's how it will be able to maintain your blood glucose levels. much better compared to the other important thing. What you as a consumer you should also try to see is whenever you buy the multigrain this thing, you also try to see the what is the composition. So by merely adding 5 grams of something other than wheat flour, it will not give you the what you are expecting. So it should be considerable amount of other grains they should be there. Of course, definitely wheat will be more, but compared to that, these things should not be only 5 grams or 3 grams or something like that, which are technically multigrain, but still you don't get the
Not
benefit that you
serving
are.
the purpose.
Yeah, that's what you are expecting from these things. Okay. Uh, I think now we can open this.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. Before I go into our audience questions, I just wanted to uh, understand a few more things from you, Doctor.
yeah, tell me.
Uh, when you said that, so ideally, it is not just a reduction of carbohydrates that people should be focusing on, but
Yeah,
to understand that within carbohydrate there is complex as well as simple carbohydrates.
yeah,
The complex ones are the ones with more fiber in it, the ones like unrefined rice, and same way the grains, the millets. So these are more fibrous, and hence I understand that they get converted into sugar or glucose in the body slowly, which in other words results in lesser deposit of excess energy in the body. And simple carbohydrates like sugar get converted really fast into glucose, which is resulting in this positive additional positive energy that you mentioned. So understanding the difference between this is more important than just blindly reducing carbohydrate in the diet. And I also understand, like you rightly were explaining now, that it is not just one component to be focused on. The fats, though very small in quantity, can comprise a big percentage of the calorie. So, considering the measure that is going into our food, the amount of fat that's going into our food through multiple sources is going to be an important factor. And above all, like you mentioned, whatever we eat, if we are conscious about the calories that are going into our body, we should have equal amount of physical exercise along with that, so that whatever energy is being formed is being burnt out, or it's getting utilized and doesn't get deposited as fat. So I just wanted to recap this for our audience, and I'm sure many of them who are wanting to work on their body weight, this will be a useful information, doctor.
so Sindhya, one more point I just wanted to highlight
Yeah.
is that try to see and yourself evaluate from where you are getting more calories
Hmm.
first. So what are the types? Because your perception of what you are using in the kitchen alone is not enough. I told you about invisible fats that you are
Yeah.
getting from the natural sources and also from the
What we are.
processed food that you are taking. And also very important is you can all have equal amount of fats from nuts. Now we are suggesting at least a fistful of nuts every day, so they'll give you fat also. They'll have a lot of fat in that, so
Hmm.
fistful will definitely, and those fats are good for health. Okay, that's the reason why. So you still get good quality fat from the natural sources that's invisible. You can reduce it the visible fat that you are getting from other sources.
So basically, the more natural it is, be it fat, be it sugar, the better
Yeah.
for the body.
Yes.
And so consciously, we need to reduce, like you had mentioned even in the previous session, that consciously reduce the processed food so that we get the natural ones more into our plate.
Yeah.
Uh, Dr. A few more questions that came to my mind. Um, it is like it is being told that the vegetarians do not get all the nutrients that's needed. That's a common myth, and so the ones who are non-vegetarians are the ones who get all kind of nutrition. So, what's your take on?
No, that's actually if you have actually concentrated more on my last talk on balanced diet
Yeah, you
in the
had mentioned that there are
in the
multiple
plate.
sources.
Yeah, yeah. So both there are always alternatives available. For the pulses or major this thing protein, because the protein is the one which we generally say is that you get more from, the quality of protein that you get from
Is more
non-vegetarian is
better
better,
than
but better. But that's true. But equally, this thing is that we increase the quantity here so that it is compensated. So all vegetarians also will get, but the quantity that is we are getting from this thing, dals will be a little less, but the quantity of dal that we consume is more. The ultimately the quantity is maintained. So we always give alternatives for each and of this. So there are so many things which actually replace. It is not essential that one should become non-vegetarian or vegetarian for this purpose.
mm.
And if you are taking all those foods which we have given in my plate, so they'll actually give you all the nutrients that are required both for vegetarians or also non-vegetarians.
Okay. I'll just check for the. Yeah. There's a query from the audience. What can be considered adequate for consumption during dinner, as it is heard that last meal should be a light meal?
Yeah, no, it's actually distribution of your this 2000 calories is actually there are different these things. So we never suggest that you should have, what we say is that breakfast, then lunch and dinner. Okay, so you have to distribute your diets. I mean that those calories in these three components. And so some of those things actually may be true, but we cannot generalize that information to everybody to tell you that you should your dinner should be very light.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so it
remember
all,
you telling in one of the in our earlier previous month's session that it's a 2000 odd calorie that needs to go. So as long as we distribute that within one day's time,
yes, yes, yes,
it is fine.
yes.
So if you've had a very heavy meal in the morning, the afternoon, then keeping a dinner light would be ideal.
Yeah, that's right. So that
Or
actually over a period of time, we actually develop our food habits, which are actually constant. Actually, we don't change every day.
yeah, we don't change it on a daily basis.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, what we are saying is that your 2000 calories or whatever your body requires around that. It is exactly not 2000. It can vary from 1900 or 1800 to 2200, something like that. So that you have to manage within the day and distribute your calories such a way that they maintain your energy requirements.
Uh, there's another general assumption that uh, it is better to avoid dairy or gluten-based products.
No, this is these the actually these are some of those things actually are not generally accepted as scientifically based in information. So in
Okay.
some cases, many things we see them WhatsApp University or Google, they people will be giving their anecdotal information. It may be working for them,
Mm.
but unless it is universally scientifically validated information, we never tell people to do this. Because it may not work for everybody.
Perhaps
Okay.
for some people who have
Yeah,
certain kind of
yeah, yeah,
intolerance,
yeah. Lactose
this
intolerance is
whole
there.
thing would
If
have originated from there, and then it's
Yeah, no, no.
being generalized.
Other thing is off late, because what happens is that this perception of having high fat is a major concern. So the milk, whole milk, will have fat, a lot of 6% fat or something. So your fat intake will go up if you are consuming a lot of milk.
Mm.
Only in that context.
So
So now there
it's
are.
not to avoid dairy, but to take it in a measure
Yeah,
depending
that's
on the
why we,
amount
we,
of.
we are suggesting around 300 ml per day.
Mm.
So in our this thing, balanced diet, we suggest it should be around 300 ml milk or dairy product, maybe curd or something like that in a day. That should be okay.
And there's also, I mean, people who are into dieting, they there's a say, there's a, I think it's a misconception that ghee is not good. It is better to avoid ghee, uh, to avoid putting on
No,
weight.
actually, compared to, I think we have to discuss something about it needs little time. What I'm trying to say is that the actually, vanaspati, if you are aware of this,
Yeah, you had
vanaspati
mentioned.
is a substitute that is actually for ghee. See, in early 19, when we got our independence, during that time, there was a shortage, and even during the war of Second World War also, there was a shortage. They have invented this substitute for ghee.
Huh.
Okay. vanaspati. This vanaspati is a full of saturated fat, whereas ghee will have a lot of unsaturated and short chain fatty acids. Relatively, ghee is better than vanaspati. Okay,
Mm.
so don't get confused with this vanaspati and ghee and pure ghee, which is actually fermented and this thing, prepared. So it will have a lot of short chain fatty acids, which are good for our health. Okay, but saturated fat like vanaspati or any
Is
other
bad.
source, like even from animal sources, you get adipose tissue, that tallow that comes from along with your meat.
Mm.
So that is saturated. So that is bad for health. So we don't say ghee specifically, we say saturated fat is bad for health, but not per se ghee.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think this is how the misconception is
Yeah,
formed.
yeah,
It is vanaspati or saturated fat which was mentioned to be bad, and ultimately we started assuming ghee is bad.
yeah.
There's one more question, Doctor. There are different methods of dieting which has become a fad in modern day life. Your views, please.
Hmm?
There are different methods
Yeah,
of
yeah, I
dieting
understand.
which has become a fad in modern day life. Your views on this, please.
Yeah, no, you see, that's what the personalized nutrition now. Personalized nutrition has become very important. That's why I said so many factors which influence your body weight.
Mm.
Okay, so I think I forgot to tell you about waist hip ratio also. Not only body mass index, which is important, along with that, especially for Indians, because our adipose tissue is this thing, belly fat
Mm.
is is a problem for Indians especially. So that's where we are trying to say is that you should be able to maintain your waist hip ratio. It should be zero point 0.8 for ladies and maybe 0.85 or zero point 0.9 to males. That's very important. So if these two things are taken together to maintain your body weight, and this has to be by expert, a personalized nutrition. We cannot generalize to say that this works,
This will
this
work.
particular diet works for everybody. It
Mm.
doesn't.
Mm.
That's because that's the reason why I told you that it the body weight depends upon so many factors, which are at individual level you have to work out. We are only trying to give you a general information, trying to say, oh, okay, I'll just reduce my carbohydrates, my body weight is maintained, is not correct.
Mm.
So your body composition and also requirements and your calorie, your the habits and also exercise also have to be taken into consideration to try to see that
Before
what is best. Yeah, what is best
diet
for
is
you. That's why he calls a personalized nutrition is very important to understand which diet is good for you. Is it a ketogenic diet?
and the
Yeah,
kind of lifestyle they have.
yeah,
How, how much
so
of
many factors. So we can't generalize and try to say that you
yeah.
use this for this.
Doctor, one more question. Uh, Plantains and citrus fruits should be avoided after sunset. Is it a fact or myth?
It's a myth. See, when there is no relation between this thing, this, you are trying to evening or I mean night or whatever.
Yeah.
No, what is that? Can you repeat
The
it?
question was plantains and citrus fruits should be avoided after sunset.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Sunset is what is the relation between sunset and this thing. Okay, so there is only thing is probably if at all we discuss about it. So your digestion, other things will take this thing after sleep. That's what we try to say is that before you sleep, there should be at least a gap of 2 hours so that your digestion. Otherwise, the digestion may be improper if you consume immediately you go for sleep. Late night eating something and then sleeping. Within, I mean, not giving much
Immediately.
time for, yeah. Okay, so only that context probably it was, but there is absolutely no truth in trying to say that you should not eat plantain or
Plantains.
citrus fruits.
Okay. And one more. Does the same amount of calories from different food sources affect the human body differently?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's what I was trying to tell you. I just now try to tell you, if you are taking the nuts, okay, the fat there comes that good, the fat that is required for our body. I just now explained to you that if you are taking a non-vegetarian which has a lot of saturated fat, there also it's a fat, but that's a saturated fat. What we are trying to say is you should have more of polyunsaturated and unsaturated fatty acids, at
Oh,
least in the ratio of 1 is to 1 is to 1. Okay, so these three components. So if you are taking, if you think that is the fat is same in all these things, it's not correct. And I
even
also
though,
yeah, I also tried to explain earlier also, you should not stick on to one oil even for cooking. Said you should be changing them so that different types of fatty acids are required for our body, you get it. So if you just stick to one oil throughout your monthly ration is also not correct. Okay, that itself explains to you that different sources of fat is really, definitely is required, and to understand the difference between saturated, unsaturated, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fatty acids.
yeah.
Okay, so
So though they have same calories, but one
no,
has
calories
beneficial
will be
effect,
same.
one
Yeah,
one is not
but
beneficial.
yeah, in this context, I would also like to say that there is another myth saying that this is a light oil. The advertisement comes, this
Mm,
is very
yes,
light, this is very
yes.
light. It doesn't mean that it is less in calories. Its calories are same. So
So
there's some companies advertise our oil is very light.
yeah,
You,
friendly for the heart. That's
yeah,
how
yeah.
it is
So yeah,
being
yeah. But light
advertised.
never means that calories are less. Calories are same. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for clarifying all the queries from all the participants. Thank you very much. This topic is quite vast, and I think we would be having one more session on the same topic. Maybe later we'll see our participants' response also.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
participating.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, everyone.